Hey, good evening, ladies and gentle drunks. My name is Kevin Olson. I'm a recovered alcoholic. I would love to welcome you all to the fourth dimension. Big book study, that is. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I'm so excited and so pleased to be starting over tonight. As most of you know, and some of you have been actually reaching out to me and saying, hey, are we really starting over? Like, yep, we are really starting over tonight from the very beginning. And really pleased to be embarking on this journey with you guys again, as we have already for so many times together. And for any of you who are new to the fourth dimension, tonight, I'm very, very pleased to have you join us. And I see some old familiar faces as well, some regulars, if you will. And it just means the world to me that you guys come and join us every Tuesday night. So with that said, guys, let's start with the set-aside prayer. As we always do, sing along if you know the words. God, please help me to set aside everything I think I know about you, about me, about my fellow man, and about the 12 steps. And please allow me to gain a fresh, new vision, perspective, and understanding of what you, what me, what my fellow man, and the 12 steps are all about. Amen. Okay. And as this is the fourth dimension big book study, I always like to read the two parts of our book that refer to the fourth dimension. So the first is on page 8. Bill Wilson writes, I was soon to be catapulted into what I like to call the fourth dimension of existence. I was to know happiness, peace, and usefulness in a way of life that is incredibly more wonderful as time passes. And then on page 25, Bill writes that we have found much of heaven and we have been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence of which we had not even dreamed. Boom! We're going to be catapulted. We're going to be rocketed. And for all who will, for the sake of tradition and custom of the fourth dimension big book study, one more time, everybody please put one hand up like this. Everybody please put another hand up like this. And everybody go, oh
yeah.
All right. Our book says, man, we absolutely insist on enjoying life. And I'm here to have a good time. I'm here to have fun. No one ever told me that Alcoholics Anonymous could be fun. Did you know that it was going to be fun? I didn't know it was going to be fun. I thought it was the end of my life. I thought my life was over when I got to AA. Anyone else ever think your life was over when you got to AA? And what did we learn? What did we learn? That the most satisfactory years of our life have just begun. Truly. This is not the end of the road, ladies and gentlemen. This is the beginning of a whole new way of life that leads us ultimately to the fourth dimension of existence. Okay. We just read, and what people have asked me, Kevin, what's the fourth dimension? What does it mean? It's like, well, our book is pretty clear. It's a life of happiness, usefulness, and peace. And if I had to say, my sponsor is big on that term useful. How can I be useful? We talk a lot about being of service to others and service in Alcoholics Anonymous. How can I just be useful? And I think that being useful is more important than being happy. Okay? Because being useful to other people will make me happy. That's how I generate happiness, I've found, by being useful to other people. So being useful will make me happy, but being happy doesn't always make me useful. Okay. Anyway, guys, I'm so pleased to be here. I want to share with you guys as we are kind of kicking off tonight. Again, from the very beginning of the book, we're going to read through the prefaces and the forewords tonight. We're going to get about halfway through. We'll probably get to the foreword to the second edition halfway through that tonight, and just get a very short introduction into history, the history of Alcoholics Anonymous. And, I was around AA for years and never touched the prefaces or the forewords. When I start reading a book, man, I start reading on page 1, okay? Because, prefaces and forewords are for losers, okay? So I never touched all of the Roman numeral text. And I started on page 1, which is in our book is Bill's story. And I started reading Bill's story. I started reading about this New York stock speculator in the 1930s, and I could not get a foothold, man. I could not understand what this cat was talking about. And I don't know about you, but when I get confused, about something, I just get angry at it and make it go away. And that's what I did with the big book for a long time. I just got angry at it. Big book's stupid. Okay. Consequently, I continued getting drunk over and over and over again for many years. Chronic relapse is certainly part of my story. And in terms of my story, I'll tell you guys just very quickly. My sobriety date, for anyone who's interested, is in the chat, February 18th, 2009. I believe it is essential for me to have a sobriety date and to know exactly what my date is and to celebrate the anniversary of that date on an annual basis. I think is key. I didn't always believe that, but I have come to believe that now. So that's my sobriety date. My home group is a Primary Purpose Group in Calgary, Alberta. Any PPG members online right now? Oh yeah, PPG. Yeah, there's a few of us. We are a solution-focused, fundamental, structured, and enthusiastic group of Alcoholics Anonymous, and we love it very much. My sponsor's name is Alan B. He lives in Los Angeles, California. He is a member of the Pacific Group of LA. He was sponsored by Clancy Immeslin for 22 years. And my lineage would be that Clancy was sponsored by Chuck C. and Chuck C. was sponsored by Bill Wilson. So I'm very pleased and privileged and honored to be part of that legacy. The history of this big book study is we've been doing this for 15 years, if you can believe that. Almost 16 years that I've run this big book study continually, like without any stops. We just continue on every week, and it's a joy and it's a pleasure, and I believe that I have a calling to do this. We all have different callings in AA and different services that we provide, but we've been doing this for 16 years, and the real kind of story behind it is I didn't get sober. I couldn't get sober until someone sat down with me and methodically took me through the work in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. That was it, until I understood that there were two sides to AA. There's the fellowship, and then there is the program. Okay. Now, I tried to get sober on fellowship. I tried meeting-based sobriety for a long time. And I'm here to tell you, brothers and sisters, I've got a bad strain of this disease. There may be people who can stay sober on meeting-based sobriety, but I'm not one of them. Not even close. Okay. I have to take a big dose of this medicine, and I need both. I need a big dose of the program, of the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and the actions given to us by the first 100 members of Alcoholics Anonymous in the Big Book. And we're going to talk about that tonight. In addition to that, I need the fellowship and I need unity in Alcoholics Anonymous. I need both, okay, in order for me to stay well. And thank God for a man named Cowboy Ray. So Cowboy Ray was a man here in Calgary, Alberta, where I live, who devoted his life to teaching Big Book studies. And he had learned how to teach Big Book studies from two men named Joe and Charlie. Raise your hand if you're familiar with the Joe and Charlie Big Book study. Okay. Feel free, guys. Anyone can go on to YouTube. I mean, today, man, when I first got sober, it was like you had a Joe and Charlie, like a set of cassettes of a Joe and Charlie Big Book study. That was like gold. I see some like nodding heads. Some of the older members remember, like, that was right, Gail and Judy, right? That was like a sacred thing. If you had a set of Joe and Charlie, now they're all over. You can go on Spotify, you can go on YouTube, which is great. I think in a way, like it's good because it's more accessible, but also I think that there isn't as much reverence for how fundamentally and vitally important those two men were in Alcoholics Anonymous. I think Joe and Charlie were as impactful in terms of teaching and sharing God's message of recovery through the 12 steps of action in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous as anyone else on the planet. And I give those men a lot of credit. And so the basic fundamental framework, the foundation, if you will, of this Big Book study is Joe and Charlie. Okay. So if you've done a Joe and Charlie Big Book study, we're going to go through the book together, and a lot of it's going to sound very familiar, for sure. In addition to that, to Joe and Charlie, and you know what? Here's what I'm going to do, guys. Sorry, one moment. I meant to have this ready here, guys. Hang on a second. I used to teach this study with a whiteboard, and that got to be kind of too difficult to do. So I'm just trying to put up a, there we go.
Try now, Kevin. I shut the whiteboard down.
No, you're fine, Rob. I'm trying to open, sorry, thank you very much. I was trying to open a PowerPoint. Here we go. Okay, you guys can see my screen right now. So we'll see Joe and Charlie. Okay, so if you've ever attended Joe and Charlie Big Book Study, or you can look them up online. In addition to that, you guys will hear me talk a great deal about two men in particular, relative to this to the program of action in the Big Book, and those guys are Clancy, sorry, gee whiz, Clancy I and Chuck C. Clancy Immisland and Chuck Chamberlain are two very influential members of Alcoholics Anonymous, and two very dedicated and devoted members of Alcoholics Anonymous. And they're really kind of world renowned. If anyone's ever heard the book, A New Pair of Glasses, Chuck C. wrote that book, A New Pair of Glasses. Clancy was well known as being probably one of the most prolific speakers around the world in Alcoholics Anonymous. If you have never listened to Clancy I, you've never listened to one of his talks, don't go to sleep tonight until you've listened to Clancy I. Okay, just a suggestion of mine, but you're going to hear me fold in a lot of Clancy, a lot of Chuck C, in addition to Joe and Charlie over the next several weeks. You're going to hear us also talk about a lot of my own personal experience, and we're going to talk about some of your own personal experience, okay? This study is meant to be very interactive. So the one thing that we don't have in this study is homework, okay? Now, I know I've attended other Big Book studies where there was homework, and you know, you would go to the study and then you would go home and you had to fill out stuff and you had to answer questions and then go back the next week and share the homework. And what would happen for me is that I'm undisciplined and I'm selfish and self-centered and filled with self-pity and all that stuff. And so I would go home and I wouldn't do the homework, okay? And then I would feel like a failure and I just would stop going to the Big Book study because I didn't want to be embarrassed, okay? There is nothing ever for you to feel ashamed or embarrassed about at this Big Book study. Good things happen at this Big Book study. Miracles, year after year after year after year, miracles happen in this Big Book study. This is a good place. Just come here, no matter how you're feeling. One of the things that Clancy teaches in AA is that I needed to learn to take actions that were better than my feelings. So no matter how you're feeling, how I'm feeling, let's just come here every Tuesday night and see what happens, okay? Now, that said, we have no homework, but there is an interactive aspect to this. So there may be times where I ask questions, or I may you know, ask someone, hey, unmute yourself and let me know what you think about this thing. And I will always help you with the answer, okay? If you start to stumble, you get marbles in your mouth and don't know what to say, I will always help you with the answer. And I will never allow you to feel embarrassed in any way at this study if I ask you to participate, okay? Participation is always a good thing in Alcoholics Anonymous, always a good thing to participate in AA. So I also just want to put this website on here, xa-speakers.org. So if you want to listen to Clancy, you want to listen to Chuck C, you want to find Joe and Charlie, go to this website, xa-speakers.org, and you will you can go on to the, and you know, tonight we're going to talk about AA history a little bit. You can go on to xa-speakers.org and listen to Bill Wilson. You can listen to Dr. Bob. You can listen to Ebby Thatcher. It's really incredible. They have recordings of these guys from many, many years ago. And so if you just go to xa-speakers.org, these are the originators. This is the foundation of Alcoholics Anonymous. These are the architects, truly, or you know, who transmuted God's message to us and helped to build an architect of Alcoholics Anonymous. along with several others. You can go on and you can listen to all these talks. Anyway, just to say, all of the stuff that I'm going to teach, that I'm going to talk about, is really all available at xa-speakers.org. I'm just a guy. I am not a some type of guru or some type of genius. I am here to share with you what I have learned, but I have learned it only because I am a student. I am not the teacher. I am here simply to share what I have learned and what I have been given, what has been shared with me as a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay. If it's in my nature to be a salesman, it's what I do professionally. Okay. And one of the things I want to say is, if you ever get the sense that I'm trying to sell you on AA or sell the big book to you or sell an idea to you, it is not because I profit from the sale whatsoever. It is because I am a satisfied customer. Okay. I am an alcoholic in the truest sense of the word. I am a hopeless, falling down, tongue-chewing, living room puking drunk who could not get sober for the life of me, year after year after year after year, in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous, who found the way out. I found the way out, and I believe I have a calling and a duty, as we all do, to share it and to send the elevator back down, if you will, and to help others find what I have found. Okay. With that said, being here with you helps to keep me sober. So don't ever forget that. Okay. This big book study is really one of the most meaningful things that I've done in my recovery. So speaking of, before we jump into the book, and we are going to talk about the book tonight, I promise. Before we jump into it, I want to share something with you that was really important for me to learn. This is something that Chuck Chamberlain talks about, and it's the transition that every alcoholic needs to make in order to achieve recovery in Alcoholics Anonymous. To make a transition from being a taker, ultimately to being a giver. Okay, this is the transition that I needed to make. My problem was that I came to AA and I kept taking everything. Okay, and I've been a taker my whole life. Okay, give me the bottle and put it on my tab. Front me the dope and I'll pay tomorrow. And then I come to AA and I want the same thing. Now give me the 10 years of sobriety and that light in your eyes and the spiritual well-being, and then I'll do the 12 steps. Because I'm a taker. I'm a something for nothing kind of individual. I want everything and I don't want to have to do anything for it. And I can't run game on God. I can't jive God. Okay. And it doesn't work that way. In Alcoholics Anonymous, I learned that I had to take some actions. I had to do some work. I've learned that the actions in AA don't care why I take them. If I take the actions in AA, if I do the work and take the suggestions and take the direction from a sponsor, I will ultimately get well. Okay, regardless of what my motivation is and why I'm taking the steps. Okay, how do we know when someone's hit bottom? It's because they're willing to start taking direction. That's what bottom looks like. Bottom is not about pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. Bottom is not about emerging remorseful with a terrible tale of woe of what's happened to me. Bottom is that point where I am willing to start taking actions that I don't like and actions that I don't agree with, because I am out of answers. Okay. And one of that transition that we need to make is from being a taker to being a giver in Alcoholics Anonymous. Why do I mention this at the beginning of our study? Because the real genesis of this study was some of my sponsees came and said, Kevin, can you teach us how to teach the big book to other people? And that's fundamentally what I want you to take away from this study, is that you're going to come here and you're going to learn this material, but not just for your own recovery, but by knowing that my own recovery depends entirely on me then giving this away to someone else. So my hope is that you will come and you will learn this material, you will make the notes, you will take the directions, you will find, you know, the actions in the book that we're going to take, and then you'll go share them with someone else. That is the purpose of this study. It's not for me to come and just take away from this study and just turn on every Tuesday night and watch the Fourth Dimension show. Okay, the purpose is that I'm really genuinely going to study this work, and then I'm going to go share it with someone else. Okay, does that make sense, you guys? Thumbs up. You guys with me on that? Can I get one of these? Can I get one of these? Yeah. All right. Okay, good stuff. Let's get into the book. Okay, so we're going to jump to the very beginning. And the very beginning of this book, as I have been taught, is the preface. It's on page XI, which is Roman numeral 11. And tonight we're going to read the preface, the foreword to the first edition, and we're going to get about halfway through the foreword to the second edition. Now, you might be thinking, like, my God, I guess I'm going to join up again in a couple of weeks. Like, I don't want to sit through this dry preface foreword to the big book stuff. This is terrible. And I would have agreed with you. I would have agreed with you completely until I started to begin to learn about the history of Alcoholics Anonymous, which completely changed my perspective on AA and completely changed my understanding of the fundamental purpose of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I did not know that the history of AA is contained in the prefaces and the forewords. So we're going to get into it. My sponsee, Brad, hello, Brad, is
Hello.
here. Is our typically our reader on Tuesday nights. There may be times where Brad can't attend, and we'll have other people join us and other people read for us, special guests, if you will, special guests who come and read. But Brad, for the most part, has been a devoted sponsee of mine for over 10 years now. I've been sponsoring you, Brad, which is great. And before we jump into the reading, Brad, is there anything else about the study, just in general, that you wanted to share with anyone, or anything that I missed in mentioning?
I love the part where you talk about being a student, and I mean the whole set aside prayer that we kick off with. I always say, for me, it's to remind me that I need to remain teachable, open-minded, humble, and that I always have much to learn, no matter how much I come to this study, no matter how much I attend and teach a different study. I always have much to learn, and I just ask everyone to be open-minded to a new experience. And the one thing I absolutely know for certain in life is things that I have believed my entire life to be true, some of them aren't. And the more open-minded I am to those things, the sooner I get to recognize them, and I get to move on and learn something new. So that's my suggestion, is come into this every week being completely open-minded to being wrong about stuff you've believed your whole life, because I know that those things still exist for me.
Well, and yeah, and that's a good point, Brad. Here's what I'll say to anyone. I know we've got some folks on the call who've been sober many years, and I love having you here. I'm honored that you're here. But here's to all you people who are new, who are thinking like, man, they're like 30, 40, 50 years sober. What the heck are they still doing here? Let me tell you what they're doing here. They know what I know that you don't know yet. And that is, over time, they sneak new lines into this book all the time. They sneak new lines into this book that you've never read before. And so, of course, that's the joke that we say in AA. The reality is my perspective and my perception changes all the time. And the lines that might have been really important to me a year ago, I don't pick up on, and there's some new line that I need to read tonight. I never know what that line is going to be. Okay. And of course, the reality is my perception changes over time. And so that's always important for me to remember. And to your point, Brad, it's a new experience with this book every time I read it. I really have to believe that. Okay. So with that said, guys, I'm so pleased to be kicking this off again. I can't even tell you how many dozens of times we've been right here, but it's an absolute honor and a joy of my life. And Brad, if you would be so kind, let's kick off with the preface.
Hey everybody, I'm Brad Soto. I'm a recovered alcoholic,
Hey,
and as I was saying before, and Kevin mentioned, I traveled some, and I've missed the last 2 weeks, and I'm super excited to be back and starting at the beginning again. So the preface. This is the fourth edition of the book Alcoholics Anonymous. The first edition appeared in April 1939. And in the following 16 years, more than 300,000 copies went into circulation. The second edition, published in 1955, reached a total of more than 1,150,500 copies. The third edition, which came off press in 1976, achieved a circulation of approximately 19,550,000 in all formats.
Okay, guys, so one of the things I want you to do is I want you to just make a little note there. that between 1939 and 1955, 300,000 copies of the Big Book went into circulation. Okay, just make a note of that. Make a mental note of that. You can make a note in your book. We're going to come back to that number when we read a little bit further on, because I want to connect some dots for you guys. That was one of the things, one of the real important things that Joe and Charlie did for me and several others, is they connected some of the dots in terms of the simplicity of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. But so make a note of that. 300,000 copies, 1939 to 1955, 300,000 copies. Okay.
Hey, Kevin, I'm not sure if you're aware, but you're still sharing your screen
Oh,
for
mercy.
some people.
No,
For some
I don't
people,
want to do
so
that.
okay.
Oh,
Back to the reading.
thank you very much, Brad. No, I wasn't aware of that.
No problem. Okay, because this book has become the basic text for our society and has helped such large numbers of alcoholic men and women to recovery, there exists strong sentiment against any radical changes being made in it.
Okay,
Therefore,
guys, so what kind of book is this? This is not a storybook. This is not a novel. This is not nonfiction. This is not a fictional book. This is a textbook, basic textbook. And what do we do with the textbook? We learn knowledge and then we apply knowledge. Okay, this is not a book that is meant to be read for escapist purposes. This is a book that is meant to be studied. There are actions, there are directions. We take those actions, we do those directions, we get the results. Okay, and it is irrefutable. Anyone who will do the work within Alcoholics Anonymous will get the results. I'm absolutely certain of that. AA didn't work for me when I needed it, and AA didn't work for me when I really wanted it. AA will only work for me when I do it. Okay? And I believe that do, that simple word, D-O, is the most important word in all of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's the only thing that accounts for anything in AA. I think it's more important than the word God, and I think God knows what I mean when I say that. This is a textbook that has actions and directions that we do. When I do them, I get the results. When I don't do them, I get worse. And I can get worse, guys, sitting sober right in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I know, I see nodding heads here right now, and I know some of y'all in this call, some of the guys in my home group right now who know immediately what it's like to be 3, 4, 5 years sober and suicidal, sitting right in the middle of the fellowship. Okay, I know all about it, man. Okay, when I take the actions of AA, I am lifted out of that state and lifted into the highest level of living. I've never had it so good in my life. The best level of living I've ever known. Fourth dimension of existence. Okay. It also says, because this basic text has helped so many people over the world, there exists strong sentiment against any radical changes being made to it. Okay? This is how strong that sentiment is. In order for any changes to be made to the first 164 pages of the Big Book and the 12 and 12, the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions that was published in 1953, written by Bill Wilson. If any changes are going to be made to that, they GSO, the General Service Office in New York, has to get approval from 2/3 of all of the home groups in North America before any changes could be made to that book, which, if you know anything about herding cats, would be absolutely impossible to get agreement, 2/3 of the home groups in all of Alcoholics Anonymous. So that is to say, and that really struck me, that like this book has not changed since 1939. And for those of us who believe strongly about it, this book is sacred. And in fact, I will make the case over the next many weeks that I believe that this book was actually divinely inspired. And it was written by human beings, but human beings that were absolutely inspired by the hand of God. And I believe that. And if that trips you out, you hear me say that and you bristle with antagonism, I get it, man. I get it. Okay. Just hang with me for a while. Okay. And I want to see if I can create in you the same magic that was given to me about how incredible this book is and how incredible Alcoholics Anonymous is. So don't unsubscribe yet. Okay. All right. Back to you, Brad.
Therefore, the first portion of this volume describing the AA recovery program has been left largely untouched in the course of revisions made for the second, third, and fourth editions. The section called The Doctor's Opinion has been kept intact, just as it was originally written in 1939 by the late Dr. William D. Silkworth, our society's great medical benefactor. The second printing of the first edition added the appendix Spiritual Experience. In the second edition, the appendices on AA tradition, the medical view, and the religious view of AA, the Lasker Award, and information on how to contact AA were added, and the appendix on the Alcoholic Foundation was discontinued. But the chief change was in the section of personal stories, which was expanded to reflect the fellowship's growth. Bill's story, Dr. Bob's nightmare, and one other personal history from the first edition were retained intact. 3 were edited, and one of these was retitled. New versions of 2 stories were written, and new titles. 30 completely new stories were added, and the story section was divided into 3 parts under the same headings that are used now. In the third edition, Part 1, Pioneers of AA, was left unchanged. 9 of the stories in Part 2, They Stopped in Time, were carried over from the second edition. 8 new stories were added. In Part 3, They Lost Nearly All. 8 stories were retained. 5 new ones were added. This fourth edition includes the 12 concepts for world service and revises the 3 sections of personal stories as follows. 1 new story has been added to Part 1, and 2 that originally appeared in Part 3 have been repositioned there. 6 stories have been deleted. 6 of the stories in Part 2 have been carried over. 11 new ones have been added, and 11 taken out. Part 3 now includes 12 new stories. 8 were removed, in addition to the 2 that were transferred to Part 1. All changes made over the years in the Big Book, AA members' fond nickname for this volume, have had the same purpose: to represent the current membership of Alcoholics Anonymous more accurately, and thereby to reach more alcoholics. If you have a drinking problem, we hope that you may pause in reading one of the 42 personal stories and think, yes, that happened to me, or more importantly, yes, I felt like that, or most important, yes, I believe this program can work for me too.
Okay, so the only part of the book that changes, and it changes every time they come out with a new version of the Big Book, which I should actually know this. Rob, do we know when is the 5th edition coming out? Do you know? I should know that. I'll check with our GSR. I know that they've been talking about it for a long time. But the 5th edition will come out, and in the 5th edition, there will be new stories. Why? It tells us right here, all changes are made the same purpose: to represent the current membership of Alcoholics Anonymous more accurately. So the only part of our book that changes is the stories, okay? And those stories rotate, and they more accurately reflect our fellowship. But the first 164 pages of our Big Book, as we call it, never change, okay? And on that note, while I'm thinking of it, the name of this book, actually, guys, for any of you who don't know this, the name of this book is not the Big Book. Does anybody know what the name of this book actually is? The name of this book is actually Alcoholics Anonymous. That's the name of the book. And one of the things that was really crucial for me to know, really important for me to know, is that our book was named Alcoholics Anonymous before our society was named Alcoholics Anonymous. Prior to that, we were just called the Drunk Squad of the Oxford Group. Okay, and as we get more into the history of AA, I'll share more about who the Oxford Group was and what they were. Okay, and really, we were just kind of a ragtag bunch of sober, kind of spiritual guys who had some actions. We had some of us in Akron, Ohio, some of us in New York City after Bill Wilson traveled back there after meeting Dr. Bob in Akron. There was some growth in Cleveland. By 1937, the guys in Cleveland had kind of split off from the Oxford Group. There was some growth in Chicago, a little bit in Texas. There was a salesman who had gone down there, but we were not called Alcoholics Anonymous until this book was called Alcoholics Anonymous. And the story that I've been told is as they were writing this book, they were thinking about what the title for this book should be. They were actually at one point going to call this book The Way Out, was going to be the name of the book. Which I think is actually a pretty appropriate title. I don't know. I can't say this is for sure. This may be just a folklore or whatever, but I'm going to share it because I think it's interesting. It's a story that warms my heart anyway. They were going to name it The Way Out. They went to the Library of Congress and checked out how many other books were named The Way Out. There was already 12 books called The Way Out, and they didn't want to be lucky number 13th, the 13th book. So they thought we got to find something else. And someone else suggested, we're anonymous and we're alcoholics. What if we called it Anonymous Alcoholics? And then Bill Wilson, our co-founder, being a slick New York lawyer, marketing genius, said, what about Alcoholics Anonymous? Just kind of rolls off the tongue, and that's what they named the book. And so what's important for me to know, to take away from that, is that Alcoholics Anonymous used to be a book that then grew a fellowship. So we were a book that also had a fellowship of the book, okay? And today, I think more and more I see that we are a fellowship that also happens to have a book once in a while. You know what I'm saying? I don't know about you, and I don't want to sound disagreeable, but I have been to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings where there was not a big book in the room. Okay, you come to my home group, you come to Primary Purpose Group, we have stacks of big books. And if you are there, we will put a book in your hand and we have the book up on the wall and we're reading it off. Like we study this book at my home group. Okay, and that's what we believe in. And so we believe in what I call fundamental structured Alcoholics Anonymous. I like to say I am a 1935 to 1940 member of Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay. And when I keep this program of action contained just in the book, and that's what I share with other people, and that's what I share with the guys that I sponsor, things go very, very well, as opposed to other times in my life where it was like I was trying to find sobriety. I was trying to work Kevin's program. You guys know what I'm saying? I tried to work Kevin's program in AA for a long time. Okay, instead of working the program. So why am I saying all this? Because the name of this book is Alcoholics Anonymous. It was important for me to understand that we were a book first. And because of the strength of the power of this book and the strong sentiment against any changes being made to it, because it helped so many people recover. When I put the book first, the fellowship flourishes. When I put the fellowship first, man, things get a little painful sometimes. Okay. Anyway, okay, so we're going to jump into the first edition. We'll read through this together, and then we'll keep reading. Well, as I said, we'll probably get about halfway to the second edition, and we'll talk a little bit more about AA history. Brad, forward to the first edition.
Forward to the first edition. This is the forward as it appeared in the first printing of the first edition in 1939. We of Alcoholics Anonymous are more than 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. For them, we hope these pages will prove so convincing that no further authentication will be necessary. We think this account of our experiences will help everyone to better understand the alcoholic. Many do not comprehend that the alcoholic is a very sick person. And besides, we are sure that our way of living has its advantages for all.
Okay, so one of the key things here, guys, one of the key things here that was super important for me to understand, and Cowboy Ray and Joe and Charlie really hammered this home, is to ask the question, who wrote the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous? Who wrote it? Well, technically, Bill Wilson, our co-founder, was the one holding the pen, but everything that he wrote was vetted and edited and approved by the first 100 members of Alcoholics Anonymous. So I believe, and we believe, that the big book was actually written by God expressing himself through the group conscience of the first sober members of AA over 90 years ago. 100 sober members of AA wrote the book. Okay? And that's what I always want to remember. This is not one man's opinion in here. Okay? This is the tried and true method of recovery for the first 100 members of Alcoholics Anonymous. And if I'm going to argue or disagree with something in the book, I'm not agreeing with one person. I'm disagreeing with the first 100 members of Alcoholics Anonymous, okay? And that was really meaningful for me to know, and which is why I share it with you. Of course, and everybody loves to say this, but the purpose of this book, and we're going to read in a couple different places, the purpose of this book, okay? But the purpose is to show precisely how they recovered, okay? The actual actions and directions that we can take in order to achieve recovery. Joe and Charlie often talk about cake recipe, okay? If you have a cake and I like your cake and I ask you, how did you get that cake? You tell me, well, you take some chocolate, you take some flour, you take some butter, you put it together and you cook it for 1 hour at 300 degrees. And you will get this exact cake, okay? And I take some flour and some chocolate and some butter, and I put it in the oven for 1 hour at 300 degrees, and lo and behold, what do I get? I get what you got. And if you want what we have, you have to do what we do. And the first 100 members of Alcoholics Anonymous outlined precisely what we need to do to achieve recovery in Alcoholics Anonymous. And that is the purpose of this big book study, is to help everyone to kind of understand and see what those actions and those directions are. We'll take those directions together. On the other hand, here's what I do. I say, that looks like too much flour. I don't like that much flour. And I'm going to put more butter because I like butter. And I'm going to use a different kind of chocolate. And I don't know, 1 hour at 300 doesn't sound like long enough to me. I'm going to put mine in for 2 hours at 400 degrees. And what am I going to get? I don't know what I'm going to get, but it sure as heck isn't going to be what you have. Okay. And that's how I used to attack AA. It's like I was going to do AA cafeteria style. I was going to take a little bit of what I liked and then leave the rest. Anyone here in AA and where you live, do they ever say that line, take what you like and leave the rest? I think personally, that is one of the most dangerous things that we tell newcomers. I'm not going to like any of it, frankly. None of us like. Our book says none of us like the stuff that we're going to be asked to do. None of us like the self-searching, the self-sacrifice, all that stuff. None of us like it. And if I'm left up to take what I like and leave the rest, man, I'm going to leave. I'm not going to do any of it. I think that's a really dangerous thing to tell people. I'm going to have to follow directions. And again, guys, how do we know when someone has hit bottom? Because they are willing to start taking directions. They're willing to start admit that their cake is not edible, okay? And they have to start taking new direction and start following what the exact directions that we take, okay? Back to you, Brad.
It is important that we remain anonymous because we are too few at present to handle the overwhelming number of personal appeals which may result from this publication. Being mostly business or professional folk, we could not well carry on our occupations in such an event. We would like it understood that our alcoholic work is an avocation. When writing or speaking publicly about alcoholism, we urge each of our fellowship to omit his personal name, designating himself instead as a member of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Okay, so when it says our alcoholic work is an avocation, all that means is that we don't get paid for it. A vocation is a job that we get paid for. An avocation means it is work that we do that is paid for in other ways, okay? My sponsor often says, if I don't have a job in AA, I can't get paid. And he means a service commitment. And guys will come up and say, like, does AA actually pay money? It's like, no, our alcoholic work is an avocation. We don't actually get paid for it in actual currency. We get paid in spiritual currency in AA. Okay, you guys with me on that? We get paid with the gift of sobriety. And that is worth its weight in diamonds. Okay, worth its weight in Bitcoin. Okay, I'm just kidding around. Okay, back to you, Brad.
Very earnestly, we ask the press also to observe this request, for otherwise we shall be greatly handicapped. We are not an organization in the conventional sense of the word. There are no fees or dues whatsoever. The only requirement for membership is an honest desire to stop drinking. We are not allied with any particular faith, sect, or denomination, nor do we oppose anyone. We simply wish to be helpful to those who are afflicted. We shall be
Okay, so
interested.
that was in 1939, and you already start to see some of the traditions kind of forming out of the experiences between 1935 and 1939. Although the traditions hadn't been codified yet, the first time the traditions are ever published, I believe, is in 1947 in a grapevine, and they were approved in Cleveland in 1950. But we already start to see some of the traditions coming out here, right? That is based on the experience of the members of Alcoholics Anonymous between June 10th, 1935, which is the birth date of Alcoholics Anonymous, and April 10th, 1939, when the big book is published. So some of the ethic and the traditions of AA were already starting to be hammered out.
We shall be interested to hear from those who are getting results from this book, particularly from those who have commenced work with other alcoholics. We should like to be helpful to such cases. Inquiry by scientific, medical, and religious societies will be welcomed. Alcoholics Anonymous. All
right, guys. So here's the deal. AA in the early days had really kind of three big ideas of how they were going to transmit this message. They looked and they saw we've got about 70 sober members that then grew to be 100, and we call them the first 100 in AA. They thought, okay, there's three things we're going to do. Number one, we're going to build a big hospital in New York, and we're going to have everyone come, and it'll be a big deal, and we'll have detox, and we'll have all the different areas, kind of like a modern day treatment center, but with like medical facilities, and Dr. Bob was going to run it, and it was going to be a big deal. They're going to get a lot of money together and build a big AA hospital. Okay, that was idea number one. Idea number two was they were going to have a professional class of 12-steppers. Okay, can you imagine, like guys like walking door to door, like knocking, hey, have you heard the good news about Bill and Bob? Like, can you imagine? Okay, guys who were going to go out and actually professionally carry the message of AA. This is really before the traditions were put firmly in stone. The third idea was that they were going to write a book. Okay. And thank God, and I won't get into the whole history of it. Rob can probably put some of it in the chat. They did not get the big infusion of cash that they thought they were going to get, because John D. Rockefeller Jr. said, no, if I give you guys money, it'll destroy this whole thing. Your thing is a spiritual thing. You got to keep it that simple. No hospital, no professional 12-steppers. And they barely had enough money to publish the book. If you read the history of how they published the book, they actually sold shares, like stock certificates, in a company called Works Publishing to get money to get this book. Here's the point. The book is published April 10th, 1939, as we just read. And they're saying here, hey, anybody getting results from this book? We'd love to hear from you, so on and so forth. What is important for me to know and to understand is that Alcoholics Anonymous diffused around the planet because of this book. A copy of this book landed in Chicago, and a copy of this book landed in Texas, and a copy of this book landed in California, and a copy of this book in Canada, where I'm from. I know the history intimately. The first Alcoholics Anonymous meeting in Canada happened in Winnipeg, and a copy of this book landed in Winnipeg. Okay, it came up through the Midwest, and that's where the first copy of this book. The way it came to Calgary is a fellow named Jack Jensen, who was a non-alcoholic that had an alcoholic brother, had heard about a book. He'd heard about a book. He didn't hear about a fellowship called Alcoholics Anonymous. He didn't hear about a treatment center. He didn't hear about a meeting that he could take his brother to. None of that existed. He heard about a book, and he got a copy of this book, and he and his brother started taking the directions in this book. And that's how AA began to grow in the city where I'm from, Calgary, Alberta. I encourage you to consider learning. How did AA come to wherever you live? Where's Benjamin Collins in Elyria, Ohio, right? I love hearing Elyria, Ohio. How did it come to Elyria, Ohio? How did it come to Bayonne, New Jersey? Ali Pasha, right? How did it come to Leicestershire, UK, Charlotte? Okay, and I'm willing to bet It was the literature. It's this book. And that's, guys, what was important for me to understand, and how important and how powerful this book is. That's how AA grew around the world. Someone got a copy of this book, and as a result of having a copy of this book, they were able to change their lives, to stay sober and be rocketed into the fourth dimension of existence. Okay. So with that said, guys, we're going to see now, between 1939, when this book goes out into the world, and 1955, now that we're going to read the forward to the second edition, we're going to see what's happened. We're going to see how powerful this book was in the world. Okay.
Forward to the second edition. Figures given in this forward describe the fellowship as it was in 1955. Since the original forward to this book was written in 1939, a wholesale miracle has taken place. Our earliest printing voiced the hope that every alcoholic who journeys will find the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous at his destination. Already, continues the early text, 2s and 3s and 5s of us have sprung up in other communities. 16 years have elapsed between our first printing of this book and the presentation in 1955 of our second edition. In that brief space, Alcoholics Anonymous has mushroomed into nearly 6,000 groups whose membership is far above 150,000 recovered alcoholics.
Okay, so this is the point that I wish to hammer home for you. Okay. Between 1939, 1955, how many sober alcoholics are there in the world? 150,000. Now, if you go back to the preface, remember I asked you to remember a number? Between 1939 and 1955, the beginning of the preface, how many copies of the big book went into the world? 300,000. So for 300,000 books that went into the world, we have 150,000 sober alcoholics. That is a pretty great recovery record. That means for every book that went out, 50% of alcoholics were getting sober. Why is that? Because there was nothing else for them to do but follow the program of action and direction in the book, and then go carry that message to the next alcoholic. There was nothing else. I remember talking to Jim, old Jim Cito. Jim is 70 years sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. Can you imagine? He, as far as I know, he is one of the longest term sober members of Alcoholics Anonymous on the planet. He lives here in Calgary. And I love him very much. But he says in when they first got sober, because there was 2 meetings in the province of Alberta. That was it. There was 1 meeting in Calgary and 1 meeting in Edmonton, and that was it. And if you ask Jim, like, Jim, how do you stay sober? Okay, take care, Gene. How do you stay sober on 1 meeting a week? How is that possible? Right? Where I come from, it's like meeting makers make it. 90 meetings in 90 days and we'll refund your misery. Anyone here ever heard that nonsense? Okay. Meetings can be a great distraction. They can be fun, and it's great to go see our friends and stuff. But how did they stay sober in early AA? How did they stay sober? He said, number 1, you never ever missed your home group. Number 1. Number 2, you prayed all the time. And number 3, you carried the message to other people. And that is all that there was. When that is how simple AA was, 50% of people stayed sober. 300,000 books go out into the world, 150,000 sober alcoholics. Okay. But now look, in 1976, which is the most recent number that we have, how many copies of the book are there? 19,550,000. Ask me if there are 19 million sober members of Alcoholics Anonymous around the world. Not even close. Not even close. And in fact, around the 1980s, I can show you guys the numbers. Around the 1980s, we plateaued at about 2 million. That's it. And it's been like 2 million, 1.8, 1.9, 2.1, 2 million. We're right around that 2 million number. Okay. Since the 1980s, we have stopped growing. Okay. As a fellowship. Does that mean that fewer people in the world have the problem? It's the total opposite. We all know that. We all know that alcoholism and drug addiction, God bless them, is as bad and as prevalent as it has ever been. What's changed? Well, what's changed, guys, is that we have strayed away, I believe, from the message in the big book. And I think I'm going to end on this tonight, guys. because we're coming up to 7 a.m. here. Fundamentally, what I have been taught is that we have strayed away from the message in the big book. And there's a few reasons that that has happened. And it was important for me to know this. One of the first things that happened was the publishing of the 12 and 12. Now, if you've read the 12 and 12, the 12 and 12 is a wonderful book in addition to the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Bill Wilson and the early members of AA never would have guessed in a million years that anyone would actually try to get sober off of the 12 and 12. That was never the intent of the 12 and 12. The intent of the 12 and 12 was really to help sell the fellowship on the 12 traditions, because there was a lot. They were approved in 1950. The 12 and 12 comes out in 1953 because Bill was trying to get more traction in the fellowship on the 12 traditions. They were ultimately approved by the fellowship in 1955. Okay. That's the purpose of the 12 and 12. But the 12 and 12 is a bunch of great essays and stuff like that. And it's really interesting. But there's no real action in the 12 and 12 for us to take, which I think is why people probably love it so much. Okay. We just get to read this great flowery stuff. And I mean, I'm sure you've all been to meetings where you go, okay, the meeting's on step 3 tonight. We're going to read step 3 out of the 12 and 12. And then here's the other thing. In 1972, I believe, in the grapevine is the first time that someone came up with the idea of the 3-topic discussion meeting. Anyone here ever been to a 3-topic discussion meeting of AA? Okay, raise your hand. I know you have. Come on, guys. Wake up, you guys. Who's been to a 3-topic discussion meeting? I call them 3-topic disgusting meetings. Okay, because that's what we do. We go and we just talk for an hour. And AA somehow kind of became pop psychology, group therapy, watered down AA. Okay, and I don't like it. I didn't like it when people watered down my drinks. And I don't like it when people water down AA for the same reason, because it doesn't have the same effect when it's watered down. You guys with me on that? And I got sicker and sicker and sicker in AA. The other thing that happened, so the first thing that happened that got us strayed away from the book, the 12 and 12, then the invention of the 3-topic discussion meeting, and this idea that going to meetings and wishing for things to get better was recovery from alcoholism. It is not. The purpose of meetings is for us to go find newcomers that we can share this message of this program of action with. You guys with me on that? Taker to giver. My motive in going to a meeting ought to be to give something, not to take something from that meeting. Okay? If you ever hear me say, guys, I really need a meeting, what I really need to do is get involved in some inventory, some prayer meditation, and then go carry the message to someone else, and then carry that solution to the meeting. Okay, I've learned that I take my problems to my sponsor and I take my solution to the meeting. Okay, the third thing that happened, and never in a million years did they understand the impact that this would have, but Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm going to ruin the year. It was in the 1950s anyway. Alcoholism was identified as an actual medical disease by the American Medical Association. They thought that would be a good thing. That would mean that people could actually get help from doctors and help from hospitals for their alcoholism. But as soon as doctors and hospitals are involved, who comes shortly after the
Awareness frozen.
treatment center is a great place. I've also been to treatment centers that are not 12-step based, and that can be very, very dangerous. And so what would happen is people would go to these treatment centers, and Joe and Charlie talk all about this. This is not just my opinion. I'm sharing with you what Joe and Charlie talk about. They go to the treatment centers and they learn about their inner child, and they learn about yoga therapy, and they learn how to get really good at volleyball. And then they think that that is recovery. And then they leave that treatment center. And what are they told? Oh, you got to go to AA for your aftercare. And so they go to these meetings and they go to the 3-topic discussion meeting. Then anybody have a topic for discussion? I want to discuss my inner child. How about that for 3 topics? My inner child, volleyball therapy, and yoga therapy. Okay, those are the 3 topics at the AA meeting. And more and more and more. I mean, I'm kidding around a little bit. I'm exaggerating. The point is that we are getting diverted and we're getting pulled away from the message in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I think of myself as a 1935 to 1940 member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I believe that the closer that we adhere to that program, the stronger that the program of recovery will become, and the stronger that our fellowship will become when we are rooted in a foundation of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Don't get me wrong, man. I love inner child work. I love yoga. I love volleyball therapy. That stuff is all great. In addition to a solid foundation in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And if that sounds like something that you are interested in learning more about, studying along with us, and changing your life to get rocketed into the fourth dimension of existence, which is very real, I promise you, then we're here. I'll be here every Tuesday night for the next many weeks, and we will go through this work together, and it will be the absolute joy of my life to continue sharing it with you. Okay? That's it, guys. We're done for tonight. Okay? So let's now, we're going to close the meeting with the Lord's Prayer. So we're going to say the Lord's Prayer, which is what I like to close this meeting with. And then don't jump off. Everyone stick around after the meeting. What I love to do, it's my favorite part of the night, is to just go around the squares, everybody say hello, and just let us know where you're from. Because this is the coolest thing in the world, man. We've got people from all over the world on this call right now. Who could have ever guessed that this Zoom and COVID and its connection to Zoom would have it as more unified around the world than AA has ever been? And we've got some new faces here. We got some old faces. So everybody stick around. Let's say hi to one another, okay? So with that said, let's close with the Lord's Prayer. Our Father,
Our Father,
who art in
who art
heaven,
in heaven,
hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses. We forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation. Deliver us from evil.
Thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Yeah. Oh yeah. All right, let's start tonight. Thank you everyone for those of you who stuck around. Let's start with Ronan.
Hi, Ronan from Dublin, Ireland, living in Calgary, Alberta.
Good stuff, Ronan. And a proud, devoted, strong member of Primary Purpose Group as well, I might add.
Sure.
Good stuff, Ronan. All right. Let's go to Vanessa. Vanessa T.
I'm from Calgary, Alberta as well.
Great to have you, Vanessa. Thanks for joining. Let's go to Liza.
Hi, I'm Liza. I'm an alcoholic. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. Thank you, Kevin.
It's my pleasure, Liza. Thank you. Let's go to Judy Pops in New York.
Yes, I'm Judy. I'm an alcoholic. I'm from Massapequa, Long Island.
Oh my.
Awesome to have you, Judy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. Let's go to Robin.
Hi, I'm Robin. I'm an alcoholic. I'm also from Calgary.
Awesome, Robin. Great to meet you. Hope to see those of you who are from Calgary. If you've never been to PPG, Primary Purpose Group, our regular meeting meets tomorrow night at 8 p.m. at the Sonalta Community Center. So I hope you'll come check us out sometime. Let's go to Rebecca.
Hi, I'm Rebecca. I'm from Warren, Ohio. I live about an hour away from Dr. Bob's house.
Oh, brilliant, Rebecca. That's wonderful. So nice to have you with us.
Thank you.
Let's go to Jeff. Are you there, Jeff?
Hi, everyone. Jeff, a grateful member from Edmonton, Alberta.
Great to have you, Jeff. Thanks for turning the camera on there for a second. That's wonderful. Great to see you. Let's go to Luda.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ludde, and I'm a recovered alcoholic. I'm Swedish, but living in Norway. Time is 3 a.m. here. And as always, feels like I'm walking with giants. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Luda. Thank you. Great to see you, buddy. Let's go to Lynn N.
Lynn, Southern California. Thank you so much, Kevin, for your service tonight.
Oh yeah, it's my pleasure, Lynn. That's wonderful. Let's go to Danelle Anhorn.
Hello, everyone. I'm Danelle from Red Deer.
Hello, Danelle. I personally think Danelle is the most beautiful woman on the planet, but she's also my partner, and I couldn't be more grateful to have her. What a joy to have you on. Danelle. I love you very much. Sorry guys, I couldn't help myself. I hadn't really talked to her yet today. So, Linda P.
Oh, hi. My name is Linda. I'm in New York here, Lancaster, California. And I love it here. And I have over 31 years in the program, and I love it. It's my life and love. Amen.
Amen.
Hey, Linda.
Love it, Linda. Great to see you. Let's go
My
to
puppy-
the
My puppy says
the.
he's-
Let's
Okay.
go to. Thanks, Linda. Let's go to the Mary